This is Tina LaFreniere, and I'm the founder of Related Faces. And I get asked a lot about facial recognition because our company obviously uses facial recognition to help you figure out who the unknown people in your photos are. And I wanted to talk today a little bit about how facial recognition works and put it in some practical, easy, just non-complicated terms. So to help you out, I found a search that I did on Google, and I wanted to show you some pictures because I think that it kind of helps you understand what facial recognition is looking for. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So this screen shows you the search that I did, and I just did recognition, face mapping, and points. And the point that I want to point out here is that facial recognition is looking exactly for that. Points on your face. How does it find the points? Well, it does it with contrast. So where does something on your face suddenly turn from light to dark or dark to light? Or can it define structure on your face? And there's some really good examples here. And I love this one right here. This is actually Sylvester Stallone. So let me click on that one. And I want you to see, if you look at how many points this program is actually looking for on his face, and I particularly look at the fact that there's so many around his eyes and his eyebrows, his lips. These are the things that help define a face. They're the things that help you tell who's who. So some people like Betty Davis, you can just look at her eyes and know she's Betty Davis. You don't have to see the rest of her face. Well, facial recognition is looking for those particular features that make you or your ancestor. And like I said, it does it with points. Our system happens to use over 180 points it's looking for at around the head, including the ears. And you'll notice these lines that are drawn between these points on Mr. Stallone's face. Those are actually distance measurements. And those distance measurements get calculated into a formula that ends up looking across other photographs in our particular database, across our entire database, looking for those same measurements. Okay, so you'll notice this photo. I'm going to go ahead and close Sylvester and show you this photo right up here. This one's pretty good. And you can see this has a lot of points around the eyes, and then it maps out all of these different lines. And what ends up happening is there ends up being thousands of calculations that are done between these various points to help map out the structure of the face. So that means it's really important to get some really good, clear photos of your old photographs so that we can define the structure of your ancestor's face. So let me go ahead and put this away now. And I've got a little PowerPoint that I created. And I want to switch for just a minute into digitizing your photos. Now, lots of people just take their photos and they put them on their document scanner and they do a 600 DPI scan. Well, I want to encourage you to not do that, or to think about it before you do that. Okay, there's some really great scanners that are out there, photo scanners, overhead ones. There's ones that are particularly made for you to feed photos in. And so I'm not really talking about those scanners. I'm really talking about your document scanners, which have a really, really bright light. But when they do their scans, they don't do them actually in a very high resolution. And you might think 600 dots per inch is really high resolution, but wait till you see what I have to show you, and you'll see it's not such a high resolution. Now, my first warning is about these two photos right here. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen for just a moment because I want to show you this actual photo. Well, let me start again. So I want to talk to you about these two photos right here. This is actually the same photo. It was scanned originally, the one on the left. I did that on my document scanner, and I did it in the summer of 2018. The photo on the right is the same one, and it's from a photo that I digitized with my cell phone in May of 2022. And as you can see, this photo has faded, and it has faded dramatically. So now I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint, and I want to actually show you the photo. And I don't take this out of the darkness very often because the bright light of my document scanner initiated a fading process. And the fading process on this photo has accelerated. And the photo's in pretty bad condition now. So let me stop sharing, and I'll go back, and I keep this. It's wrapped up in some black fabric here. So this is the photo today. And you can see how faded it is. And it's sad because this photo of my great-grandfather someday is going to be blank because I put this on my document scanner. And it was 125 years old when I inherited it. And I put it on the scanner, and now it activated the paper. And let me pull it out again. What I want to point out is you'll notice that this is kind of like a fax paper that's glued to a cardboard. You can see that it kind of has a shiny finish. So if you have some photos that are like this, don't put them on something with a bright light, and store them in the dark. Store them properly for this kind of photo. You want acid-free paper if you can get it. But the most important thing is to keep these photos in the dark, and do not digitize them with something that has a bright light. Now let's go back to sharing my screen again. And I want to move on to the photo right below it. And you'll see this one down here. This one was also digitized with a scanner. And it looks like a newspaper photo. So this one was done 600 dots per inch, but it was made to, well, let me put it this way, dots per inch, right? So dots per inch changes your, what we'll call an analog photo versus digital, something that has smooth lines. 35 millimeter is what we think of, from when we all grew up. But these photos had incredible quality, and their plates were actually created real negatives, right? And it wasn't digitized. Well, when you take these and you digitize them with dots per inch, it changes your lines around your eyes into little dots. And you can see this is grainy. Facial recognition does not like dots and grainy because it sees the photo as dots and grainy. So many times it won't see the face at all, or counter to that, it may find a face everywhere. As this photo, when I loaded it in for facial recognition, it actually located a face in the flowers in her hands. That's not really there. But the system is trying to find those points of contrast that look like a face. So how do I digitize my photos? Well, I now use this wonderful device called my cell phone. Okay? And my cell phone, as you can see over here, has a great feature called Zoom, and it's a digital Zoom. And I think you're going to be very amazed at the quality of what you get out of digitizing your photos with your cell phone. I use a cookbook stand. You can see down here in the lower right, and it's positioned to my right, and I actually have a window. So I get this really great soft light in the morning, and that's when I do most of my digitizing, because I don't want a harsh, direct afternoon light. I want that soft glow. So I turn off my overhead ceiling light because I don't want the shadow and glare of my body reflecting, or the lights reflecting off my photos. I use the side light, and you can digitize photos very well. I also switch out either black or white fabric behind, depending upon what brings out the most contrast. Remember that we're looking for points on a face. And the best way to find those points, like the corners of your eyes, the tops of your lids, the top of your cheekbone, the best way to find those is with contrast between a light point and a dark point. And if you use your colored background, that will help bring out where those points are. Okay, so now I want to talk to you a little bit more about things that were digitized with a scanner. So you'll notice this is the same woman. Her name is Delma. And on the right, you'll see that this photo right here is one that I have. And this is on the one on the left is one that my cousin gave me of Delma. And you can see that they both look really great, the ones in the black boxes, okay, that you wouldn't suspect that there's any real quality difference until you start to zoom in on her face. And as you can see, when I zoom in on her face, the one on the left was digitized on a scanner, and the one on the right was digitized with a cell phone. And you can see that the definition and the contrast is lost in the face on the left. In the face on the right, we've maintained that because we used a cell phone. Now, cell phones will digitize in pixels, and they'll digitize at thousands of pixels per inch versus 600 dots, which some scanners now turn into little squares, as you can see in the photo on the left. So you want to stick with something that can scan the face and keep that definition. Now, there's some really cool new scanning programs out there. Some companies like PhotoMine and MyHeritage, and there's several ones that are out there that allow you to scan photos, multiple ones at a time, which is great. But here's what I want you to do. If you are using one of those programs, be really careful about the size of your heads that you scan. So if you put down, say, 4 photos and you scan them all at one time, are you getting a nice, clear picture of the head? Or are you getting one picture and your faces and your heads are very tiny? So let me go to my next slide. So as you can see here, this is a pano photo. And the guy where the arrow is pointing, this is my Uncle Martin. So my Uncle Martin went to Chesterton High School in Chesterton, Indiana. And this is him. And this is only a part of the pano. It's actually a big roll. And I digitized this with my cell phone. So it's actually a pretty good quality. But you'll notice, even with digitizing with my cell phone, the faces in the back are very tiny. So I went ahead and I zoomed in just on my Uncle Martin, and you can see him on the lower left here. So small group of people. And you can see I've got a really good clear picture of his face. Now watch what happens. I'm going to take this photo of the pano and I'm going to go ahead and crop it in some more. I'm going to crop it in approximately the same size as what I have on the left. Okay, so now my photo's cropped in, and I'm going to move my arrow out of the way, and I'm going to make this really big. Now, make this one on the right equally as big-ish. And you can see, look at the difference by I used the same device, but I used the zoom feature on my phone. And you can see on the photo, I'm going to use this little arrow as a pointer. Look at on the right-hand side, the one that I zoomed in just on a section of the photo. You can see, I see Uncle Martin's whites of his eyes right there, really, really clearly. Where in the photo on the left, his right eye looks like a black blob. Well, I'm not going to get facial recognition points on a black blob. And the girl right behind him, you'll notice she almost looks like she has a black eye in the photo on the left, but in the photo on the right, you can see the whites of her eyes. So you get that contrast. So you can actually now map her iris as well as the white, as well as the lids, where you don't get that in the photo on the left. So when you're thinking about digitizing your photos, I hope that you'll keep these things in mind, and you'll use a device where you can scan in and you could zoom in on their faces. Don't convert them to dots per inch, and be very mindful of your photo papers and make sure that you don't expose to very bright light those photos that can be ruined by that bright light. So I hope that this was helpful for you. And I'd like to invite you back for our next tutorial.